started this morning, and let's just pray real quick, and then we'll start. Okay? You guys want to come to the front? Stand up, you awesome. Make sure your phones, cell phones, headphones, any kind of phones, make sure those are away right now. Okay, teachers, help us out. Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for a new morning. We thank you that your mercy and grace is new every morning. So we grab hold of that today. And I pray that as we worship today, that you would hear our hearts, that you would know our intentions, Lord God. And I thank you that as we come before you and we just hang out and fellowship together today and through our workshops, Lord God, that you would just be glorified and that we would find your truth in the sermon, in the worship, everything. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, please.
There's no space that his love can't reach. There's no place that we can't find peace. There's no end to amazing grace. Take me with your arms spread wide. Take me like an orphan child. Never let go, never leave my side. 'Cause I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am love like this, love like this. Oh my God, to find I am overwhelmed with this joy divine. Love like this sets our hearts on fire. 'Cause I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am. Resurrection song. This is my hallelujah call, and this is why it's to you I run. This is my resurrection song, and this is my hallelujah call, and this is why it's to you I run. There's no space that his love can't reach. There's no place that we can't find peace. There's no end to amazing grace. 'Cause I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am. 'Cause I am in the middle of the storm. I'm holding on. I got you in the ears. Sorry, guys. Mr. Aaron's mic decided it was going to go out. It's in the ears. Hey, leave that.
Wait, there's too many.
No, be in. No.
Check, check. You guys hear me now?
All right. I got one more new one for you guys.
Yeah, we got a cool new one. It's really cool. We should sing this out once you get it.
so worthy, so holy. Your love stand the test of time. No matter what circumstances, guys, that you're facing, His love is more than enough. You might be hurting really bad right now. You might be crying inside. But just know that He embraces you. Even when you don't feel it, even when you don't think He's He's there, and He's going to continue to be faithful. Lord, we thank You that You are faithful, that You are a good God, and that You have the best plan for us, God. Sometimes we don't understand it. Sometimes it throws us off, Lord, and we're confused. And I thank You that, Lord, in the middle of all that You see through the pain, God. You see the purpose that we have in our lives. Lord, each and every one of these people in here today, Lord, they have a purpose, they have a plan, they have gifts that You want to use them to share with the world, to change the world. We're going to be world changers, Lord God. World changers, Lord Jesus. We're not going to back down, but we're going to stand our ground. We thank You. We pray in Jesus' name. Check, check.
There we go. That was a short video. Usually we have more time to get our stuff set up.
Whew, Carl.
But that was a particular poignant video. Poignant. There's a good SAT word. It touched base with what we've been talking about this week. Obedience. Now, one of the things that I really dislike about obedience is the root word, obey. That means that I have to do what somebody's telling me to do. And it's just against my human nature to do that. And as I see pretty much every day from y'all, it's against your nature too. Hopefully, I can be one of the grown-ups that sets the example by doing. I don't have to tell you you're supposed to obey. I show you. Hopefully you guys see me obeying when I'm told something. Whether it's by Mr. Eric for the school, or Mr. Aaron for the band, or my wife for my life, I do what I'm told. And hopefully I rarely complain or question it. I had a very cool example the other day, Mr. Aaron. I had a group of kids that were sitting in an area that I didn't want them to sit in.
Yeah.
And I went and I said to them, I need for you to sit somewhere else. And a few of them, almost like they had planned it, they said, why? And I said, because I said so. And you know what they said? Okay. And they got up and moved. And I mean, it was just so nice and easy. And it was something as small as that could have been a really big, huge deal. Because they could have wanted to argue back with me, and then that would have set me off, and then I would want to argue back with them, and then we waste a whole lot of time, and in the end, they're going to end up doing what I told them to do anyways. But no, they didn't do that. They obeyed. And it was a piece of cake, and it really didn't make a whole lot of difference in the end. The sun still rose the next day, you still had your lunch and your dinner, and you still had a home to go to. Life goes on. But you know what happens to me? Things kind of get in the way of being happy. Somebody tells me to do something, and I don't want to do it. And so now all of a sudden I'm miserable, because I'm the one that doesn't want to do what I've been instructed to do. And I'm doing and pouting and pitching a fit, and I'm the only one that's miserable about it. And you know what? I'm going to end up doing what I'm supposed to do anyways. So I try to develop the attitude of trusting other people that are in charge of me for different things. Mr. Aaron doesn't always pick songs that I enjoy playing. Yeah, come on, Mr. Aaron. No, he picks them because that's where he's being led for the whole service. I have to trust him that he knows what he's doing. So when he picks the songs and he tells me these are the songs that we're going to do this week, do I say, oh man, I really hate that song? No, I say, alrighty dokie, and then we put everything together. And that's what we do. We follow the instructions. We have to trust that the person in charge knows what they're doing, and he does. And that's just one example of my personal life. But what happens quite often is that there are what we call stumbling blocks. That's really the devil trying to get me into a bad mood. And he comes along and, man, he ruins my good time. I was in such a good mood, and then this terrible thing happened, and it really ticked me off, and then I decided I'm just going to pout about something else, and then somebody else got upset with me, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it's ruined my good time.
Carl, I want to ask everybody this. Have you ever had a moment where you had to obey, and it was the scariest moment you ever faced? You ever had that? I'll tell you what, sometimes obedience is so hard. And it's not like, you don't want to do the right thing, you want to. But you know that there's going to be consequences to that. And we need to recognize that, understand that. But in the end, here's what we have to understand. And I was thinking about this. We can get so short-sighted. What does that mean? We're looking, we can only see, 5, 6 feet in front of us. And we don't see the overall lasting effect of what we potentially could do.
The big picture.
The big picture, exactly. And that's the thing that we have to understand. And we have to get past the temporary and what we see in the short and understand that the step we take, right? The obedience that we make today affects my future. It affects the entire course of my life at times. And that's crazy. And this is where we come into the story that we read about Jesus. So Jesus, I don't know if you guys remember the story that we read. I think it was Tuesday. But we talked about how Jesus comes out and he's like, hey, can I use your boat? And he goes to the disciples. The disciples say, yeah, they weren't disciples yet. I just ruined the whole thing. But anyways, he gets in the boat and he starts just talking to the people because there's this massive crowd. And he had to kind of get out so that he could see everybody. So he's on the boat, he's talking. They get done with that, he comes back in, and he tells the disciples, the soon-to-be disciples, he says, I want you to go out. I want you to take your boats out. And I want you to cast your net. Now, here's the thing. I'm assuming that these guys were very knowledgeable in what they did. They were fishermen by trade. That's what they did. They worked hard. And they knew that water very well. They had gone out earlier that day and had caught literally nothing. Not a single thing. So in their minds, they're like, okay, wait, who is this guy? Like, he asked to borrow his boat. That's cool. But now he's asking us to go out like he knows how to fish. I mean, we don't even know if he's ever fished in his life. Right? But something, I believe, was in them. Something just kind of stirred in them, and they just felt like they needed to do it. And they might have looked foolish, right? If they went out and nothing came up, it's like, okay, now we just embarrassed ourselves, we embarrassed this guy. I mean, this is hard. But they did it. And does anybody remember what happened? Was there a lot of fish? Exactly. There was a ton of fish. To the point where they had to take the other boat, the second boat, and bring it over and fill that boat with fish. It was just full of fish. And this was, one of the first miracles that we see. And in that moment, okay, they caught the fish, they brought it in, and it was like Jesus was saying, this is who I am. And I believe that the disciples in that moment recognized that there's something different about him. There's something so unique. And I really do believe it when we walk in the integrity of God, like, people see it on our face. And I think that's what happened there. I think they saw the God within him, because he was God and man, right? Jesus was both. And so they saw it, and Jesus says, all right, listen, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been fishing a long time. You've been making pretty good money. I'm going to ask you to do something crazy right now. I'm going to ask you to let go of that, to stop doing that. Stop fishing for fish and start fishing for men. And he says, let those down, come with me, drop it all, give it all up, because you're going with me. And the disciples followed, and the rest is history.
They did what they were told. They trusted that this guy knew more than they did, and that he was going to lead them. And they followed. Now, we got more of these kind of stories coming up in the coming weeks with our Bible studies in homeroom. Every week, Aaron and I, we kind of compete to see which homeroom is participating more. When we get together on Tuesdays to plan our sermon for today, our lesson, I'm always telling him, well, my homeroom was saying this, and they were chiming in with this, and they were asking this, and he does it right back to me too. So I hope that all y'all's homerooms are just as cool as that, and you're getting somewhere, and you're learning some new things. Learning things. We're in a school, and we're learning things. Imagine that. Well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And you know what? Not just you students, us too. I mean, I try to learn something new every day, and I learn a lot of things from you guys, as well as from my colleagues and my bosses, and I learned some things on my own too. I kind of have the philosophy that if a day's gone by and I didn't learn something new, it was a wasted day. So you guys, your day will be much more productive and happier if you can greet each day ready to find something that you're going to learn new today. And if you pay attention to your teachers, you're definitely going to learn something new. It may not be a subject that you like very much, math, but it could definitely come in handy.
I heard that.
Later on down the road. That was a subliminal message, what can I say?
Love math. Love it.
One of the things that we learned new this week in my homeroom was a term for a group of people called Pharisees. And for those of you that might have missed that, back in Jesus' day in their church, there were two different groups that were in charge. They were the leaders. There were the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Kind of like the Democrats and the Republicans, but we're not going to get too much into that. These two groups were basically just as wrong as our Democratic Congress and everything. But anyway, so these were the people that Jesus had to deal with on a daily basis because they were in charge. And they were not willing to recognize that Jesus is the Son of God, which basically makes him God as well. All right, because they had their charges. They were the leaders of the church, and you're not going to come around and tell me. Well, if they're not willing to try and find something new to learn, they've wasted a day. And sometimes one day becomes another and your whole life. If you can be that blind, that narrow-minded by your self-centeredness, well, I only want to do things that are fun. Well, sometimes you have to do the have-tos. And these groups of people were not willing to open up their minds and look at the way things could possibly be differently and how much better it's going to be. They basically missed out on the whole boat. I mean, they were not willing to give it a chance. They were narrow-minded. They were self-centered. All they wanted was me, 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 me. Not we, me, me. Right. Think of a baby. All the baby knows is that if I scream and cry, somebody's either going to change my diaper or give me something to eat. And there's nothing wrong with that while you're a baby. But you guys have any of your fellow students that you see that just start, they just keep crying until somebody, well, hopefully not changes their diaper, but gives them whatever it is that they want. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And you say, quit acting like a baby. Grow up. That's my favorite dadism. Because I said so, and grow up. You know, we want you to grow up. We don't want you to act like a baby. So if all you're thinking about is yourself, then you're acting like a baby. And if you are a baby, that's okay, but you're not babies anymore. One of the other things that we've been talking about in homeroom is ways of serving other people, helping other people. In my homeroom, we've often mentioned that when we do something nice for somebody else, it really makes me feel so cool. And so I'm getting a benefit out of it as well. It's not just to serve other people for the sake of doing what I'm told, but I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to be blessed. I'm going to feel really good about myself.
And that's the thing, you know, and we're not coming at it like, I want that, I need that, this is what's going to fulfill me, but it's just, it's a given that we have to do that. And we have to find the heart, you know, and we see that with Jesus. We see it over and over with Jesus. We were talking about the leper, and something that Mr. Carl and I were talking about on Tuesday. We're talking about how when Jesus healed the leper, first of all, leprosy was a very bad thing. Like almost like ate away your skin, and it was contagious as they thought. And what they would do is, if you got leprosy, you were out. Like, get out of town because you're not going to give that to everybody else. So they were considered unclean. Well, can you imagine somebody touching these people? Right? I'd be like, I'm so sorry that you feel like that, but I probably shouldn't touch you because I don't want to get that, right? Well, Jesus touched the man. He put his hand on him, right?
Yeah, the disease was so contagious that even just brushing up against him, he could get it. If I had the disease, he could get it. So they had to kick these people completely out of town. And when they came into town, for whatever reason, if they needed to get something at the store or get some water from the well, they had to shout, "Unclean! I'm coming in! I am unclean!" so that people could get away from them.
It's crazy. And Jesus puts his hand on him, and he speaks healing into his life, and he's healed. But we were talking, Mr. Carl, really, we really thought about the whole idea that he touched the man. Like, let's think about this. Like, if Jesus is all-powerful, right? He's got God within him. Couldn't he have just stepped back and said, "You're healed"? Did he have to touch him? What do you think? No, I don't think so. I don't think he had to touch him. But I think it was an act. It was an act to show, an act of kindness. To show that, look, I'm willing to go all the way here because I love you and I care about you and I have compassion for you. And this is what we want to do, you know, with these Jesus stories, is we want to dig down deep and figure out who this guy was and what he was about. Right? And it's the little things like that that just blow my mind. I'm like, man, I never thought about that, right? And that's what I love about our discussion. that you and I have. And we can have that in homework too, and we do, you know? That's so cool. I love it.
A lot of times, Mr. Aaron and I will ask each other the weirdest questions. You know, it's like one of the things that I always think about. I mean, Jesus died for me, for you. That's how I get into heaven. But then I ask questions like, well, how come? Why did he have to die? Couldn't God have just said, all right, from here on out, I'm going to forgive everybody for their sins? Why did he have to have his son die? I don't know. That's one of the things that I plan on asking when I get to heaven. But I think that a lot of times the things happen because we as human beings, even those of us that have been to school forever and have learned a lot of things and think that we're pretty smart, we are so uneducated in everything. Our minds are so limited that we cannot understand why certain things had to be the way that they are. And I think that if we see certain things like Jesus touching the leper and saying that you're healed, we're like, wow, if he touched this guy, it's okay for us to touch somebody. Sometimes that physical contact is just what you need to make you feel better. Sometimes we just need a hug. I don't need somebody to tell me it's going to be okay. Just a hug makes me feel so much better. That physical contact, seeing things, teaches us so much more. Real quick overview of the Bible. The Old Testament and the New Testament is divided right down the middle, kind of, sort of. Actually, in the very middle is the book of Psalms. But we have two sections of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Old, as in, that's the old way of doing things. New way of doing things. That's when Jesus came along and set us up a whole new way. In the Old Testament, people had to sacrifice an animal. That's like their whole livelihood. They had to take their best animal and they had to kill it and sacrifice it to let God know how sorry they were for their sins. In the New Testament, now we don't have to do that because Jesus died for our sins to wash them away. All right? We don't have to do that over and over again every year like they had to in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, God would have people do things that we might not feel comfortable with now, like invading the town next door and wiping everybody out or enslaving them. In the New Testament, Jesus says to love your enemies. Not go and invade and kill everybody and take all their possessions, but to love them, even if they're doing you wrong, that you are to forgive them. Totally different way. It's all new and it's so much easier. I don't want to have to make a sacrifice every year. All I have to do is say, thank you, God. Please forgive me. You're in my life. It's as simple as that. It is so easy. And when I've got Jesus in my heart, it helps me to be able to live a better life. It's one of the things that we've been talking to you guys about every Friday and every whole room. I mean, we're teaching you some religious things about the Bible, ways of becoming a Christian. But we're also trying to teach you how to be a better person. And everybody from all walks of life can certainly benefit from that. You don't have to be a Christian to be a better person. I pray for you and I hope that you will accept Jesus as your Savior so that we can all go to heaven. That's my hopes and dreams for you guys. But we want you at the very least to become better people, better members of our society, better students, a happier person. A happy person is more successful in life. So we can look at the way that it used to be, that's in the Old Testament, and that would help us appreciate what we've got now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes we can get really confused on the Old Testament. And there's people dying, there's war, there's a lot of things going on, right? But what we have to understand is that, when we chose, remember in the Garden of Eden, we chose to sin. And when we chose to sin, we separated ourselves from God. And with that came a curse, right? And that curse stayed with them. It really, they carried that curse. Every single person after, every child born, carried the curse of sin. And sin is not a game, guys. It's not. It's really not. And you got to be so careful. But as we continue in the Old Testament, we see it over and over. People have to, just like Carl said, they have to sacrifice. There's wars. God's judging these people, right? But that's the only choice he had in this moment. But something came around, right? He had a plan, and it was really like he was, he was setting it up. He was setting it up for the breakthrough. He was setting it up for salvation. And God, the Father, knew that he was going to send a son. He knew it. And he knew the timing. He knew all of that, right? Because he knows all. And we just have to understand that when Jesus came, things completely changed. The whole culture of who God is and what he was about changed. And it's not because he changed his mind. Okay? Don't think he changed his mind. It's because he purified us through Jesus. And when he purified us through Jesus, now we are in a place where we are not separated from him anymore. We don't have to receive that judgment like we did, because salvation covers it all, right? The blood of Jesus covers it all. So understand that, guys. Understand that. And I think maybe, I'm hoping that maybe that will give you a better perspective of the Bible and the stories in there. Right? We see a lot of craziness in the Old Testament, and then all of a sudden everything just changes. And you just look into it, really. Look into it and see the different changes. Okay? All right. Well, let's pray this morning. Heavenly Father, we love you so much. And I thank you for today. I thank you for what we've learned today. I hope that today we leave and we go to our workshops and we better understand what this life is about, and understand that, Jesus, you paid it all. Just like we were singing, that we build our life on you, Jesus. Because you are a firm foundation. We don't have to build our lives or our houses on sand anymore. That we're just waiting for it to, waiting for the storm to come and crash through and break everything. But that we can stand strong knowing that you are our shelter. You're our strong tower, Lord God. So today, let us find love, joy, peace as we go throughout the day. Let us find compassion. Let us find obedience to be our right-hand man, God. We thank you for all that you are, all that you do in our lives. And we're not going to forget it, God. We're not going to forget your faithfulness and the miracles that you've done in our lives. And we thank you. We pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.